Bond was busy spazzing his way through the 70s when half the series' super-producing duo decided to call it quits. Harry Saltzman sold his interest in the franchise to Cubby Broccoli, with The Man with the Golden Gun being his final Bond production. Shortly after The Man with the Golden Gun's box office returns were counted, it seemed he might have been smart to jump ship on the franchise before it tanked. The Man with the Golden Gun was not as successful as previous Bond films had been, though it was by no means a failure, with over $90 million made off its $7 million budget, and it had been met with a tepid reaction from critics and audiences alike. Well, after 2.5 years of planning, legal disputes, and with a budget almost double The Man with the Golden Gun, Cubby Broccoli's Eon Productions put forth their most lavish film to date, a film that would take Bond back to a sort of grand adventure that made him so popular to begin with. The Spy Who Loved Me was a sort of neoclassical Bond adventure, a back-to-the-basics attitude made at the right time with the right feel to be what just might be the most Bond film ever made. The pre-title has a British sub and some mysterious shit happens to it, and all we get out of it is an oh my god. The sub has disappeared, and at the same time a Russian sub has just gone missing. General Gogol here puts out a message to his best agent, Triple X, and there's a fun little switcheroo where the focus is all on the dude before the reveal that Triple X is actually the chick, Anya Amazova, played by Barbara Bach. The guy is her boyfriend, he's also a Russian agent, and he's being sent to Austria. Bernard Lee, who's great as always, says a similar, "we'll get our best man on it," and he sends a message out to Bond in Austria. Bond is getting it on with this chick in this awesome locale like a badass when M's message comes in, and he bolts up, gets dressed, puts his skis on, and this chick says, "Oh, but James, I need you." And Bond says, "So does England," which is fucking silly, but really awesome. Then Bond skis away, and the chick informs the Russians, including Anya's boyfriend, and a fun little ski chase starts with some good stunts and some fun action, and all set to the most awesomely dated version of the Bond theme ever, Bond 77. Just look that up. I'm not gonna lie, I fucking love it. All of this culminates in the most perfect of Bond moments, the thing that makes this quite literally the best fucking pre-title sequence in the history of the franchise. Bond skiing off a cliff into oblivion and popping his Union Jack parachute. The stunt is amazing, and thanks to some complications while shooting it, the whole thing is captured perfectly by this one long single shot. Fucking classic. Then into the movie's personal theme song we go, and sure, it's kind of a bit of 70s schmaltz, but it's still a classic and you fucking know it. Anya is sent after info on the missing sub by General Gogol, and he informs her that someone has killed her boyfriend. They don't know who, but they know he's British. Bond arrives back from Austria and is briefed on leaked info about British Polaris submarines that someone is trying to ransom back to England or sell to Russia, and Q informs us that someone can track their submarines by their wake now. And then we meet Stromberg, the main baddie. He's talking with the scientists who developed the submarine tracking system and informs them that someone is trying to sell it. Then he excuses his assistant, who gets into the elevator, and he hits his button, and the elevator trapdoor opens, and she slides into the shark tank, and it's all very goofy, but it's the over-the-top sort of Bond movie thing that The Spy Who Loved Me is going for. I also like the reaction of the scientist dudes as they get into the elevator to leave. Stromberg plays some music and hits some buttons, and it's revealed that we are in this awesome, massive underwater city, Atlantis. Two henchmen enter, Shandor, the little dude, and the other, the iconic Bond baddie, Jaws, played by Richard Kiel. The two scientist dudes take off, and Stromberg just blows them up. And then he says to inform their next of kin that they died in an accident, and the burial was at sea. Stromberg is played by Kurt Jurgens, and part of the film's legal woes had to do with the ownership of the character of Blofeld, who was supposed to return in this film, and Kevin McClory, the owner of the rights to Thunderball, claimed ownership of the character, so Stromberg was invented instead, with his webbed hands and whatnot. Stromberg is he's a good villain, though he's a little too broad. He's still a decent replacement for Blofeld, and certainly outmatches Donald Pleasant's Blofeld. So cut to the desert, and Bond is cameling his way to a contact, and Bond learns Max Kalba is selling a microfilm which has the info about the submarine tracking system on it, and he's got to go to a guy named Fekish first. Egypt is a great location for Bond. He goes to Fekish's place and is ambushed by Shandor, and they have this pretty decent fight atop some buildings. Then it's off to the pyramids, where Fekish is already meeting with Anya. Jaws is seen by Fekish, who panics and takes off. Jaws chases after him, and so does Bond, resulting in this awesomely goofy moment where an actual photo of Roger Moore was used to show him hiding against a rock. Jaws kills Fekish with his creepy metal teeth, and I mean Jaws is really freaking creepy. So Bond gets the info on Max Kalba, and it gives him an excuse to wear a tux. Anya is there too at this place Kalba owns, and Barbara Bach can't really act at all, but she is fucking hot. Anya and Bond have their first real meeting after the pyramids. They order each other's drinks, and Anya rattles off lots of info about Bond, including his dead wife, which visibly bothers him. And this is the movie where Roger Moore really comes into his own as James Bond, where he finally finds his personal groove. He's not as cool as he was in Live and Let Die, but he's very much more divine than he was in The Man with the Golden Gun. So Jaws steals the microphone from Kaba and kills him, and then Anya and Bond chase after him, ending up in Jaws' van as they drive these ruins that I'm pretty sure I should know the name of. And they have a fight here where they all fight over the microfilm. And Bond and Anya have really great interplay through this because they're still kind of working against each other but together. And the scene ends with Jaws like trying to tear apart his own van as Anya tries to drive away and Bond keeps giving her shit. And Jaws really is just like crazy superhuman strong through this whole thing. And he really is the franchise's best henchman. He's just awesome. The Spy Who Loved Me, it might be just a greatest hits from the franchise's past as far as a lot of the plot is, but Bond and the Bond girl being equals is quite new, and it's a nice change. Bond and Anya are fun to watch. They escape, and they share a nice moment on a boat before Anya knocks Bond out and steals the microfilm. The film takes great care to show that both Anya and Bond are staying neck and neck when it comes to one outwitting the other, though. Bond heads to his local headquarters where M is waiting with General Gogol, and we learn that England and Russia have decided to team up to figure out who got their submarines. We get a great Q scene in which General Gogol uses M's first name, Miles, and they are able to figure out the microfilm has something to do with Stromberg, and Bond and Anya are officially teamed up after they try to one-up each other through this whole conversation. On a train to Sardinia, Bond and Anya share some great sexual tension before another run-in with Jaws, and it's a good fight. No fight aboard the Orient Express and From Russia with Love, but it's on par with the one with Teehee and Live and Let Die. So in Sardinia, Bond gets his new car, the Lotus Esprit. Anya calls Q by his real name, too, Major Boothroyd. And this is the first time I think we hear it since Dr. No or From Russia with Love, I don't remember. Q's briefing on the car is seen at a distance from Anya's point of view, so we don't get the details, so they're a surprise later. A good fucking move for the movie, instead of in Goldfinger when they're like, the car does this, and then Bond does everything the car does. So Bond and Stromberg meet, and Bond's pretending to be a marine biologist through this, and we get some nice stuff with this because Stromberg just totally knows Bond is not a marine biologist. Once they get ashore, Bond and Anya are in a chase where there's a frickin' motorcycle with a rocket sidecar and Jaws is shooting at him, and Naomi is chasing him in her helicopter, and it's this great fucking car chase because this helicopter is just doing the craziest looping around all over the place to chase them, and it ends with Bond just driving the car off the pier into the water, and the Lotus turns into a fucking submarine, and that just cements it as the coolest, the #1 coolest fucking car Bond ever gets. #1. Better than the Aston Martin. I'm saying that as a Bond fan who likes the movies and read all the books. Bond spies on Stromberg, and there's some scuba dudes that attack, and there's this cool fucking underwater chase that ends with the Bond theme coming in at the right time when Bond drives the car awesomely onto shore. Bond and Anya go back to the hotel, and they have a conversation where Austria is brought up, and she pieces together that Bond probably killed her boyfriend. Bond says, yeah, he did. He doesn't recognize his picture, but he's pretty sure he did because somebody attacked him. Bond gives a good, fair response to this, but Anya says she will kill Bond once the mission is over. Bond and Anya board a U.S. submarine and they meet Commander Carter, and they all go after Stromberg's giant tanker. The tanker incapacitates the submarine and then swallows it through these doors on the front, and this is accomplished using really amazing miniatures, and it transitions pretty seamlessly into what is probably Ken Adams' most impressive set to date. The set that was so big that the special 007 stage at Pinewood Studios had to be built to house this set, the inside of Stromberg's tanker, which holds 3 submarines with room to spare and has a few hundred orange-shirted lackeys just in case. It is freaking amazing. Bond and Anya are taken to Stromberg, and he reveals his world domination plot. He's going to have the Russian sub nuke New York, and the British sub nuke Moscow, and global destruction will follow. Bond asks about a ransom, and Stromberg's like, I don't want any money. And Stromberg's planning to just start a new life under the sea, just like Homer Simpson. This is as good a time as any to discuss the plot. Director Louis Gilbert previously made You Only Live Twice, which featured a very similar pit Russia against America to rule the world plot. Here the plot has been streamlined to be much more palatable, and the action doesn't seem anywhere near as forced and out of nowhere. Oddly, Lewis Gilbert would also helm the next Bond film, and it would feature an almost identical plot. But for The Spy Who Loved Me, which is presenting itself as a lavish back-to-basics adventure, it's perfectly fine. It doesn't stick out or feel forced, and since the actual Russia against America elements are introduced late in the film and are not a central focus, it doesn't feel as awkward as the way You Only Live Twice tried to build tension around America and Russia, escalating their animosity. The nukes go off and chaos ensues. That's the plot. It rocks. Stromberg launches the 2 subs and sends Bond down with the prisoners, and he's going to take Anya back to Atlantis. Bond escapes and quite easily frees the British, Russian, and American sub-crews, which of course leads into the film's big set-piece action finale. It's a big, perfect Bond finale, the best of any of the chaotic fights set aboard a giant set. It works best because it's not too long. The command center is impregnable, so Bond gets the idea of using a detonator from one of the nukes, and there's this moment where Bond has to remove the detonator without touching the walls of the inside of the nuke's inner workings or it'll go off, and it all works. Bond and Commander Carter set their plans in motion, and this requires Bond to ride along the security camera to put the detonator in place, and there's again another good, perfect use of the Bond theme. The good guys blow the door and take over the control room, and Bond changes the firing targets of the submarine so that they fire on each other and take each other out, and we have what might be the only movie where the good guys win and 2 nuclear missiles still go off. Stromberg's ship starts exploding and everyone piles into the US sub to escape. They blow the front off Stromberg's tanker and get the hell out of there, and it's all fucking epic. The American sub takes off with orders to sink Atlantis, but Anya is still aboard. Bond asks for time to rescue her, and they put together his package from Q, the wet bike. This was badass and newfangled when this thing fucking came out, and it's cool. Bond boards Atlantis, and of course Stromberg says, "Ah, Mr. Bond, I've been waiting for you," and he invites him up in the elevator. Bond figures out the elevator has a trapdoor and whatnot, and so Bond and Stromberg have a little meeting, and they have a brief back and forth before Stromberg just tries to kill Bond, and Bond rather straightforwardly just shoots Stromberg a few times. It's not an amazing ending to the villain, but the showdown with Stromberg wasn't really what you've been waiting for. Bond searches for Anya, and there's the real finale, a run-in with Jaws. Bond subdues Jaws in a fun way by activating this magnet that, honestly, I don't really know why Stromberg would have near his fucking shark tank. It hardly matters, though. Bond just smiles at Jaws, and Jaws smiles back, and Bond gets his teeth with the magnet and drops him in the shark tank. It's hardly the end for Jaws as he actually bites the fucking shark and gets away. Bond finds Anya, and the American sub fires, and Bond and Anya have an exciting escape while Atlantis fills with water. Anya spends the finale being nothing but cleavage, which is nice. Bond and Anya escape as Atlantis sinks in this escape pod thingy, and it's all lavishly decked out for Stromberg, and Bond notes that maybe he's misjudged Stromberg since he drinks Dom Perignon 52. Anya pulls her gun out and says the mission's over, but instead of killing him, they have sexual relations, which is admittedly jarring and downplays her boyfriend's death, but it was hardly important to the film, really. M, Q, Hargraves, and Golgo look into the escape pod as they pick it up, and Hargraves asks Bond what he's doing, and Bond replies, "Keeping up the British end, sir," and the film sails off into a perfect Bond finale. Bond films to a certain degree are judged like horror film sequels. Their merits are based on the elements they do well, such as the Bond girl, the villain, the henchman, the pre-title sequence, the theme song, etc. And The Spy Who Loved Me may not have the classic 50s style charm of From Russia with Love, or the slam-bang attitude of Live and Let Die, but it nails all the Bond elements better than any other film in the franchise. When I think Bond, I think The Spy Who Loved Me. Is it perfect? No, but no Bond film really is. The franchise has been chasing that perfect, big-budget, elaborate adventure since Goldfinger hit big, and they muddled it up with Thunderball and You Only Live Twice, and the films that followed that were big, but not as big as those two, and The Spy Who Loved Me sets out to be that sort of lavish adventure, and based on what the film wanted to accomplish and what it wanted to do for the franchise, it succeeded brilliantly. Roger Moore is in his element, finally nailing the way he wanted to play Bond, and becoming the face of the iconic spy, really for anyone born between 1962 to 1982. Bond has always been Roger Moore to me. The pacing is perfect, the story may be familiar, but it's given enough of a makeover to make it work, and it certainly outclasses the simple-minded You Only Live Twice. Barbara Bach might be a terribly wooden actress, but really, she's no worse than Honey Rider's dub voice, or any other Bond girl for that matter. The film has the best pre-title, the best Ken Adams sets, the best henchmen, the best icing, really. The Spy Who Loved Me is straight up, without a doubt, the best example of a Bond adventure, and really the hallmark film of the franchise. It's the film that truly proves that nobody does it better.